What we're going to do in this exercise is create a dice for 3D printing. So we're going to start from the default cube. That's all we need. So select it. So edit mode, and then we're going to use the loop cut tool. So we can either use the tool or the shortcut, which is Control R, and lay in some basic cuts. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4. What we're going to do with these is define a border around the entirety of the dice that we can then bevel and smooth later on once we've laid out all the pips. So that's all we need for the moment. Disable the tool, so click on the move widget, and then we want to be in view sidebar. Get the sidebar. Make sure our edge loop is selected, so that's the edge loop around the entire mesh. So alt click, and then we're going to numerically position them. So we're going to use X, Y, or Z, or Z, depending on which orientation the edge is on. And for this, we just want to do 0.75. We want that one to be 0.75. Alt click 0.75. Alt click. .75. 2 more, so this time I'm just using the shortcut because it's quicker, so that's Control R. Let's drop that in place, Control R, drop that in place. As that's already selected, let's just 75, alt click 0.75. So that is an outer frame, and this is what will be smoothed or rounded off with the bevel tool later on. So this central area is where the pips will go. And we're going to do the same thing to all sides, or the same thing will happen to all sides because of the loop cuts that we're now going to place. So again, I'm going to use the shortcut key, Control R, mouse up, increase the number of cuts. We want 2. Click to set, and then escape to confirm. So Control R, mouse up, click, escape to confirm. Control R, so we're selecting the orientation by mousing over this vertical edge, which orientates the tool horizontally. So mouse up, click, escape to confirm. So what we've created is a grid where our pips will go. So we've actually got a grid of 9 which accommodates pips, the central pip for 5 and the number 3. So that's our basic blank, our dice blank. And then what we can do now, switch to face select, and we'll just do one face. I'm going to inset this. So again, we can use the inset tool or just press the I key whilst we're in edit mode. So I key, and it will inset, and then we want a specific value so that we can set a border around where the pip will appear, because this border separates the pip from the surrounding surfaces to create a clean edge around the circular pip when that gets put in place. So let's go with 0.05. So that's the border. So that's what we're going to do for all the faces on the grid. So a quick way of doing this is selecting all the faces, press the I key to inset. That will inset the group. We want them inset individually, so we press the I key again, and that will inset them individually, and then we type our value, so 0.05. So there are all our pip holders where the pips will go. So we can do the same thing again. So I key to inset, and individually it's already set that, so 0.05. Do the same thing again. Inset. So if it inset the group, it's the I key again once we've initiated the inset tool. So 0.5. Inset 0.05. Inset 0.05. Inset 0.05. So what we've got now is essentially a set of windows. To make the pips, however, what we want to do again is inset the pips. We can do them all at the same time, because what we need to do is push these backwards to create some depth for the individual pips. So if we select all of them, what we could do here to make this easier, so we've got all the inner areas of our faces selected. This is what the pips will be made from. So what we can do here is material properties, create a new material, new, let's call this pips, change the color, and then assign. Of course we need to be in material preview. So there are our pips. This just makes selection easier. Deselect, select, deselect, rather than selecting all the surfaces again. So inset, let's type 0.1 this time, 0.1. And then what we can do is scale inwards. So that's Alt S. So this is basically scaling along the normal of each face. So each face has a normal that points out perpendicular to the face, and we can use that as an axis along which scaling occurs. So it'll scale the entire selection for all faces inwards. So the shortcut for that is Alt S. Let's go 0.1 again. 0.1. Negative 0.1. So backspace. Negative 0.1. Enter. So this is our blank. And all we need to do now is remove the unwanted pips. So what we're going to do is select our face, and then using edge slide, so double tap the G key, or we can use the tool. That will give us the widget. We just click drag on the handle, and we're going to pull this face outwards until it meets the edge. Like so. So this is 6. So we've got 6 pips. We don't have to worry about the color assignment right now. So we need to do 1 on the opposite side. So just flatten these. That's 1. 6, 1, 5. So that's 5. So 2. So that's 2. 6, 5, 1. So we want 3 and 4. So let's do 4 on the top. That's 4 and 3 on the bottom. So we've got 1, 5, 6, 2, 4, and 3. Next, modifiers, add modifier, subdivision surface. And we can see already what that does to our pips. And that is our dice. So what we can do to remove these materials is select those inner spots and press Control Numpad plus or Control Numpad minus to deselect. So what we're doing is making a more or less selection. So all we need, so let's just zero this out. So what we want is we're using this inner face which has been expanded to fill the entire area, but that means that this loop is now hidden from selection because it's been collapsed, so we can't necessarily select it with the mouse. So a quick way of selecting something like that that's been collapsed is to use the select more or less. So more or less, so that's Control Numpad plus, Control Numpad minus. So we'll select those faces again. Control plus, because what we can do now, material properties, material, let's just rename this dice. We're going to assign that to those selections to clear up. Control plus, assign so that we can see. Control plus, Control plus, dice, assign, Control plus, dice, assign, Control plus, dice, assign, and that cleans up our dice, which we can then go back into our modifiers just so that we can now reassign our modifier. Let's exit edit mode because that is basically the dice done, and that is our dice. Absent the color, this won't be printed. This is just for clarity's sake so that we can see what we're doing. So that's what we're going to print. So let's save this, file, save as, call this basic dice, save as. So what we want to do before we actually do that is to get this prepped for printing. So we need to change the units of measurement to get this relative to our printer. So we want to go into Scene Properties, set the units. So we want to set length to millimeters, and as we do, this will change to millimeters. So we need to set the scene up for this. So millimeters. So it's now converted it into a millimeter version of our meters. So it's 2000 millimeters, which is obviously too big. So set scale 0.001. So it's now scaled that back. We need to set the scene scaling. So 0.001, and that needs to match, generally speaking, that matches the unit scale. So that's okay. And then all we need to do, select our object, rescale. Let's make this 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters. So that is now our dice. Let's reset. So we need to reset the scale so it's all 1. So select dice, object, apply, rotation and scale. That resets the scaling back to 1. And all we need to do is just export this as an STL file. So File, Export, STL. We want to make sure selection only is set so no other objects are included. Everything else can be left as is. Apply modifiers, that's okay. Then export STL. So that's exported the file. So now we need to look at this in our slicer so that we can export it for printing. So in the slicer we just open the file, basic dice, STL, open, and there is our dice. And if we click on the slice button, we can see how the printer will print this. Preview. So that's what we're going to get. So it estimates that it's going to take 1 hour and 23 minutes to print, and it's going to use 10 grams of material, or 3.37 meters, so almost 3.5 meters of filament to print a dice that's 2 by 2 centimeters, or 20 by 20 by 20 millimeters. So one thing we want to do with the dice, for quick printing, we can set the amount of infill. So this is going to be a solid dice, so it'll be solidly printed. We can reduce that, slice, and we can see the difference in time it takes. 36 minutes, 4 grams, and just a little under 1.5 meters of filament. So this gives us a preview of what's going to be printed. If we disable adhesion, so we get rid of the preprint, and do that again, we get a sense of what's going to be printed. So half an hour. So all we need to do now, we've got a 10% infill, so basically that means that this dice will be hollow on the inside with some cross supports. Those are auto-generated. Right, so with all that done, all we need to do is save this file, save the project, So that's going to save the project. This is just the working file of the slicer itself, and then we're going to switch back to prepare, then file, export. Make sure to select the file that's compatible with the printer, G-code in this case, and just click save. So the next step is just to print this.